Take it away, Mark.
Right. He took kind of my thrust away a little bit there, but that's okay. But I'm still going to go through the introduction that I had planned. So, what if you were told there's a health intervention out there that could reduce diabetes by like more than 50%, and cardiovascular disease, reduce your risk of it, things like clogged arteries, blood pressure issues, strokes, heart attacks, all that. This intervention can reduce it by 40% or more. What about it could reduce respiratory issues by 30% or more? It helps with weight loss greatly when combined with some other things. And my favorite part, brain health can reduce risk of anxiety, depression, dementia, Alzheimer's, those kind of brain health issues by 40% or much more in some studies. What is this health intervention? Is it a pill, a pharma pill? Big, Pfizer or somebody? I should probably use that name. What's a nice supplement, that some doctor guru invented, right? Or what if it's a device, some kind of thing you can put on your wrist or maybe in your home exercise thing? Or maybe it's something that gets surgically implanted, some new thing that they can cut you up a little bit and just put it in there and it does all these things, Or maybe it's getting a high-end health coach, maybe someone might cost $500 a month or somebody to really keep you on track so you reduce your risk on all that. But I'm here to tell you there's a few other things. What if I told you the cost is zero? Would anybody believe you? I mean, would anybody believe it at all? So what is this health intervention? And this health intervention is well documented, and the subject that Tom introduced is a subset of it. But this health intervention is 30 minutes of physical activity every day. 30 minutes of physical activity every day, somewhat rigorous. I don't mean not like super passive, but rigorous, catch your breath a little bit, kind of physical activity. That will produce all that 40% plus stuff like the diabetes, the cardiovascular, the brain health, the respiratory, help with weight loss. All that is from physical activity. The reason we're mentioning walking is because walking is the easiest way to get this 30 minutes a day. You think, well, walking, how could that really help? I'm not talking about like Olympics walkers where they're like, and we're not talking about just like that kind of walk, but a nice, regular, good-paced walk every day, 30 minutes, can produce all those benefits that we just talked about. And there's a lot more. There's 9 systems in your body. Walking helps benefit all 9 systems in your body as well. So I didn't mention all the benefits, just kind of gave you a top level summary there. So the secret sauce, the wonder drug, is walking. Now, how many people here have an idea how much they walk? And let me ask this question: who here thinks they walk about at least 1.5 miles a day, or about 3,000 steps, by show of hands, on a typical day? So about a third, about a half of you. Okay. All right. Just wondering where we're at. All right. I want to mention some other things in the physical activity area. And we'll mention Stephanie. She may want to go right after this because past her bedtime. But Stephanie, for example, is in very good health. Okay. And you can do things for this physical activity like pickleball. She can beat people 10, 15 years younger than her. I've watched her. And what about dancing too? Dancing helps keep you young, and Stephanie likes to dance also. So she's an example of what we're talking about here. Stephanie's Exhibit A, okay? And I want to mention other things too that people do, and with a little caveat, a little side note, a footnote. That is swimming, bicycling, yoga, and floor exercises. They are all physical activity, but they have one slight disadvantage, and that is they don't help the bones. So if you take people who only ride their bikes, people who only swim, I mean, people 20, 30 years swimming, 20, 30 years bicycling, don't do other things, they're at high risk for osteoporosis. So those do not help your bones. For example, the pickleball helps the bones. walking does, the dancing does. You need a little, just this amount of walking helps the bones a lot, okay? So that's one thing you want to do is make sure your 30 minutes includes some things that help with the bone health. All right, let's move on to the next one. Another couple benefits of walking that I've noticed in physical activity is I get stuck a lot on some creative problem or some problem I'm trying to solve. I used to be in Toastmasters. I have to give a speech, and I'd be like just blank. I have my topic, but I'd just be blank. And then I'd take a nice 30-minute walk, and all of a sudden the ideas are just flowing and flowing. And I'd write it down, get on my phone, and make some notes. So it just stimulates creative thought. And some of the great scientists and people like Einstein and some other great scientists, they have even said that some of their best ideas came to them when they were walking. So it's got some really cool benefits there. I want to say this about walking too. I've seen so many people, I would say maybe age 55 and up, who can hardly walk anymore. I mean, just because they're just going from the TV to another chair to sitting at a restaurant to just a lifestyle that doesn't really include much walking at all. They always take the closest parking space they can get so they don't have to walk. I mean, then walking is a bad thing. Well, I would submit to you, based on a lot of examples I've seen, that walking is one of those use it or lose it things. You don't like to walk, maybe a year or two, not so bad, but you just get in the habit of not liking walking over time, hip problems and knee problems. You may get some of that anyway, but I think people who walk regularly are a lot less risk to have hip problems, knee problems, all kinds of things like that. And so I submit that to you. And the use it or lose it, I'll give you an example in my own life. I used to be able to play the piano reasonably well, but then I stopped playing for 15, 20 years. I can't play the piano at all anymore. It's so embarrassing. Maybe I can do some scales, but that's it. I can't play any music. It's really embarrassing. And I used to be able to speak somewhat fluent Spanish to the degree where I could go to Mexico in a non-English speaking area and survive for like a week. I can't do that anymore. It's use it or lose it. So I submit to you again, walking is that same kind of thing. I sure hate to lose my ability to walk. Okay. Another thing, if you have a younger doctor and you go to physicals, which I don't, unfortunately, but I've been talking to some younger doctors, and they say that they understand the science, because I do study walkability. I'm not academically, but I study walking and walkability stuff just for passion, personal interest, okay? So I've talked to some young doctors, and they go, oh, we know all about walking. And I go, well, the older doctors don't. And he goes, that's right, they never taught it in medical school. But we know that one of the signs, like if you've got a patient, let's say age 65 or up, we can ask them to go walk down the hall and back, and we might put a little note in their chart about how long we think they might live, just based on how they walk up and down the hall and back. See some balance issues, see some things they don't like. You might just put a note in the chart. You might want to ask the doctor, did you put any notes in my chart when you did that walking thing? Okay, this is a little bit random too, but I'm fascinated by this, and I've not done a deep dive on it, so we're a little tangent here. There's a principle called Nico. This one's new, Tom. Okay. It's developed in Japan by a gerontologist, MD, doing some research studies. And his name is Dr. Tanaka. And he promotes slow jogging for health for seniors, say 60 and up kind of thing. You would think, oh, you should only walk. But he says that even this slow jogging has even more benefits than walking. And he's written books and given seminars. I think there's some YouTube videos on it too. But something worth checking out. I have not done that yet, but I'm quite fascinated by the idea that slow jogging would be safe and very beneficial to older people. And if it's beneficial to older people, it's probably really beneficial to younger people. Exhibit B. We'll let a YouTube video do that for you, I think, but I'll give you what I think from what I've seen, a little bit of it. It might be like that. You're not doing like a big step off thing, but okay, you got the idea. I don't need to do it again. All right, we got that. All right, and then I want to put in here, getting walking in our society, as Tom said, can be hard because starting in like about the 1920s and 30s, all the city design things, all the street standards were slowly converted over to 100% preference for vehicles as opposed to bicyclists or walkers and things like that. So walking in the United States kind of became old-fashioned, and it did in large parts of the world too. China is the most recent example, who had a great bicycle and walking infrastructure, and they go, that's old-fashioned, we want cars everywhere. So now they have cars and pollution everywhere, and it's very hard to walk in most bigger cities in China, but it didn't used to be that way. So anyway, walking's old-fashioned, so they say, and but it's hard here. So my last place I lived, I had this route where I could walk 1.5 miles each way, so 3 miles a day, and I loved my walk. Now I moved to a new place in near Tempe. I'm in Mesa near Tempe. I haven't found a route I like yet at all, and I've become a little bit lazy, and I don't want to use it. I need to find a route so I can do it, even if I have to drive a little bit to that route. I want to walk a walking route that I absolutely love, because then I'll do it a lot if I love the route. So anyway, that's my own true confession there. I want to give you some examples, some personal examples of people I've met or known that had some really amazing health turnarounds, and they're doctors and they attribute it largely to walking. My first example is a friend of mine named Tom in Indiana. You've met him, by the way. When he was about 60 years old, he was put in the hospital. His doctor diagnosed him, and he went to the local hospital. His heart disease was so bad, they sent him down to a much big city hospital, heart hospital, and they said, you only have 11% heart function. If you don't get a heart transplant, you're going to die. So he's in the hospital several weeks trying to stabilize, and no heart became available during that time. So they sent him home to just kind of wait for a heart to become available, and then come back immediately when we got your heart for you. So I asked him, I said, Tom, ask your doctor if you're allowed to walk while you're doing this waiting for your new heart. Remember, he only had about 11%. I said, make sure your doctor approves it. And he asked his doctor, and he goes, yeah, you can walk, just don't overdo it, but you can go walk. So my friend Tom started walking every day. Not real far, not real fast, but just walking every day. Fast forward 1 year later, he gets a clean bill of health. He has no sign of heart disease whatsoever. This guy had 11% heart function. A little bit diet. Some changes, but diet I don't think was the most important component. Yeah, and I encouraged him to, and we're real good friends. So anyway, that's amazing. I have another friend here in Arizona. That guy's in Indiana. Another friend here in Arizona, not a close friend, but a guy who had about the same, about 15% heart function, a little younger than Tom, like maybe 55, 54. He had the thing. He was put on a wait list for a heart transplant. He did not make any changes to his physical activity or his diet. He died 1 year later, unfortunately, with 6 kids at home still, age about 53, 54 years old. So what a contrast between these two men who both had almost no heart function and were on the heart transplant wait list. Okay, that was my first story. That's my favorite one. Another one, though, this is one here in Arizona, near here, Mesa. Age about 50, 51. He had a major stroke. He was a pastor, and he had a major stroke to the point where he could no longer pastor or do much. And Tom, I need my exhibit over there. So he had this stroke where he couldn't really do a lot, and I said, show me how you walked after you had the stroke. Okay, let me do it, Tom. He wants to do it. He wants to be up here. He wants to do it. But he showed me. He says I could walk with a cane, like this. And he said like going to the back of that store would like take 20 minutes if he didn't fall. Seriously, I'm not exaggerating. This guy showed me that 1 year later, not influenced from me, but just from his own doctor. His doctor said, you should try to walk, even though it's hard for you. 1 year later, he could walk like this. I'm going to come over here. He could walk like this. That's walking every day from that to that. And he was able to get another job again and go back in to be productive in society and support his family, all that. I mean, really, 1 year later, all right, another person I met, this guy in Florida, he's about 30 years old when I met him. He told me, he was just slightly overweight when I met him, but he told me, he goes, I used to be 125 to 150 pounds overweight. I was huge. I said, well, how did you get to where you are today? He goes, well, a year ago, you wouldn't have recognized me. I was just big, big and slow. And he says, I did a little diet stuff, but he goes, the biggest thing I did that I attribute to the weight loss, he goes, I did a fast walk as fast as I could, being a really big guy, for about 45 minutes, an hour every day, at least 6 days a week. I walk around this big, huge lake in Florida. And he goes, 1 year later, look at me. Notice there's 1 year theme in all these, right? That'd be, the start and then the end. And then one last one is, this is an 83-year-old man in Arizona who used to worry his two daughters because he'd hop on an airplane, fly to New Jersey, where his roots were. He was a restaurant guy back in the day in New Jersey. He had all these friends and relatives there. He'd get off the plane in Newark, New Jersey, hop on a bus, get a subway, and just, subways and buses, they take a lot of walking upstairs and do things, and he was just very, very vibrant. And I interviewed him one time, and I said, what do you attribute all your vibrancy and health to? He goes, I like to walk. He goes, walking is what keeps me young. So another example, personal example, I know. So let's do a quick review here. What percentage health risk reduction can we get if we do these walkings for things like the brain health and the cardiovascular health? What percentage risk benefit can we get? What is it? At least 30%. Yeah. And most of these, it's 40%. When I gave this talk 5 years ago or so, I had all these numbers, a 60 and a 58 and a 43 and because I looked at all these studies and I threw out all these numbers, and they've become way too hard to remember all these numbers. But if you just use the number 40%, almost all of these things have at least a 40% risk reduction. Some of them have much greater. And I went back and looked at some of the studies because I didn't believe it. So I wanted to see the research. So I did do a pretty deep dive on that. And I'll show you how you can. If you don't believe me, I'll give you some way to do your own little research on that. Another person I want to mention, not that I know him, but I'm not sure if he's still alive. I think he is, though. Do you remember Dick Van Dyke? Anybody? Yeah, so when he was 93 several years ago, he was asked, how are you so young at age 93? I think he's maybe 96 or 7 now. But he said one thing, he had 2 words for why he was so healthy and young. He said, keep moving. Keep moving. That could be dancing, but keep moving is very, very big. So let me tell you now how to do your own research. And I highly recommend this video. I think Tom's seen this video, and it's an amazing video. There's a guy named Dr. Mike Evans. He's an MD doctor out of Toronto, Canada. And he produced this video on walking, the benefits of it. It's like 9 minutes. It's pretty, and he goes super fast. But he gives you all these studies, and you can go look them up. He gives the doctors' names, and all the health stats I quoted to you were from Dr. Evans and the research he did. So the way to find him, I highly encourage it. If you put in your little search bar, YouTube or Google, whatever, put the word Mike Evans 23 hours, and it'll pop up probably the first one. Mike Evans, I think you can even just do Evans 23 hours. But the video name is 23 and a half hours. And the reason that name comes about is, remember, the 30 minutes is your dosage, your minimum dosage is 30 minutes. So he says you have 23 and a half hours to do those other things you do in a day, your work, your sleep, your eating, your socializing. He goes, but can you invest 30 minutes to take care of your body, right? Invest in it that way to get these amazing, health benefits from it. So that's why he titled his video 23 and a half hours. And I think that's a good place to end the talk, but we will take some Q&A or have a little discussion if we want to. Okay, repeat the questions. Thank you for being such an attentive audience. Stephanie, you are now allowed to go home if you want.